Welcome to the BamCam with Jack Burnette and Alison Castellano from RFG Advisory. In this podcast, we explore how life and financial well-being are intertwined. We'll look into areas concerning motivation and attitude, financial planning, investing, and much more. Our goal is to empower you with the information and resources you need to help manage your money and strive towards the life you've always wanted. So sit back, relax, and join us on this journey of uncovering your true self and achieving financial independence.
Hello and welcome to the BamCam podcast with your hosts, Jack Burnette and Alison Castellano. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
Good. It's good to see you guys. Now, what do we have in store for today?
Today, we're going to talk about some financial resolutions that you might make looking into the new year.
Absolutely. You know, so many people talking about New Year's resolutions, things of that nature. We're going to orient or plant some ideas that people might want to think about as they might be looking to get their new year off to a good start.
Yeah. So we've just created a list of some possible resolutions for people. And the first one that we thought was create a budget to track and manage your expenses.
You know, in previous episodes, we've talked here on the podcast about spending wisely, managing things. And, you know, most people have listened to the podcast, but probably not actually sat down and looked at creating a budget. And now's a good time.
Yeah. It's kind of like starting the year fresh.
You also are going to be soon kind of gathering information for taxes and your tax preparation here in the spring. So it's a good time to look at where your spending is and how you're doing. And are there things that you can cut out? Are there things that you can improve on? Can you manage your spending more wisely?
When you say cut things out, one of the first things that pops to my mind is subscriptions. There's subscriptions for so many things these days.
Well, they need to be reviewed periodically to just make sure that you are continuing to use those subscriptions and getting your money's worth. And so if you have subscriptions you're being billed for and you haven't used that service in quite a while, then you need to look at getting out of that subscription.
Yep.
So and maybe you want to add a financial planning subscription in its place.
And we can do that.
Which we can help you with.
Yeah.
So, you know, one thing, Alison, managing a budget used to be such a foreign concept for you.
Oh yeah, it was very hard in my younger days.
Before you got married.
Yeah, I was an overspender and didn't give a single thought to where my money went. Didn't know any trends about where my money was going. And it just created a lot of financial stress.
Correct. But
a lot of stress for me.
But you and Adrian do watch your spending now. And I can't remember, it was just in the last 2 days that something came up and you and Adrian asked you and said, where do we stand on our spending for the month?
Yep. And that happens pretty often. And for example, we're doing something this evening and I wanted to go to a nice restaurant in town. Thought it'd be fun to have a little date night with Laura, of course. And Adrian, when we were talking about it this morning, said, well, can we afford to go there tonight?
Okay.
And
based on your spending for the month.
Yes, based on our spending for the month. But he also knows that our spending for the month is a little out of whack because we've been buying more Christmas gifts for people. So our spending is a little crazier this month. Okay. But we're both aware of that.
Was that a stressful thing for him to ask you that question?
I don't think so because our communication is really good around money.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And both of you are on the same page.
Yes.
From that perspective. Okay. So that's important. And, and if, you know, managing a budget and expenses might be a first step of that might be making sure that if you're in a relationship, either a marriage or domestic partnership or something of that nature, that you're both on the same page on spending and goals. So that's an important thing. Okay. So Number one is maybe developing a budget and working off of a budget and managing and tracking your expenses. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good resolution.
Yeah. So a second resolution that we thought about was building or starting an emergency fund.
Right. Well,
because life happens.
Correct. And every household should have an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Data actually shows, from studies around the country, that more than half the households in the United States have zero emergency fund set aside.
Oh, what do you do when your car breaks down?
It's a problem.
That would be a problem.
And what happens in the United States more often than not is that goes on a credit card with a very high interest rate, and then it's
you pay
paid
the minimum
over
and
time, and it creates digging a big financial hole.
Yeah.
So depending on your circumstances, you should set a goal and have a minimum, probably a minimum $1,000 in an emergency fund. And depending on your household, if your income is substantial or whatever, maybe that emergency fund is $10,000 or $20,000, depending on your household. But at a minimum, a household should have at least 1,000.
Yeah. It was not that long ago. My car was in the shop for quite a while. It was like a 6-week stay in the shop, but my bill was like $2,500.
Right.
And we had an emergency fund that we had accumulated.
Right.
And that's where that money came from. And that was helpful to have.
And even though that was at least a little bit stressful, but it was not something that you lost sleep over.
Correct.
And a lot of households in this country would lose sleep over that.
Yeah.
So
I'm not ever saying it's fun to have a $2,500 car repair bill, but
no, of course not.
to be prepared for it.
But you also drive a car that's fully paid for, and you don't have car payments and things of that nature. You're driving a car that's several years old, and it's a good car.
Yeah.
So
I need it to get me a few more years out of it, though.
Right. Okay, good. So another thing that people might want to be doing is not only having an emergency fund, but maybe having savings and investments so that you can be investing to grow and build wealth over time.
Yeah. So investing is something, it sounds really scary, but it really is such a powerful tool to potentially build wealth. And you really need time to be your best friend when you're investing.
The art to investing is time and discipline. So if you have an investment account and that you are investing in, maybe you can be contributing on a monthly basis to it or on a per pay period investment. And I'm not talking about your retirement account. I'm talking about another, what they call non-qualified investment account, so that you are investing in that account over time and letting that wealth build. And it can start small, but over time, you can build something very substantial.
Yeah. And the reason that it can build over time is because of this thing called compounding.
Correct.
Which a lot of people probably don't understand, but it was taught when we were in school. And I know I taught it as a math teacher. But the idea that your investments generate a return and then you earn interest on those returns.
Or it might be dividends.
Yes.
If it's from stock investing, capital gains, things of that nature. But you reinvest that. You don't sweep those off and spend it.
No, yeah. You keep them invested.
Reinvest so that not only do your initial assets that you invest in grow over time, but the earnings off of that, both dividends, interest, capital gains, are reinvested, and those grow over time. And it does grow more exponentially that way.
Yeah.
Which is a good way to do. But again, time and discipline. And then also there's an art to your asset allocation.
Yeah.
From that perspective. And that's where a good financial advisor can help you by doing that. But if you have a goal for establishing an investment account, that's something that we can help you with as well.
Yeah.
We also, this time of year is a good time to really take a look at your retirement accounts. Most people have a retirement account through their employer, most commonly a 401k type savings plan that the employer contributes to in addition to the employee. Often the employer is contributing what's called a match contribution, but sometimes they're making another additional contribution that might be a profit sharing contribution or things of that nature that can be going into the plan. And you want to make sure that you are contributing at least the amount to maximize the benefit that the employer will put in.
Yeah.
So, for example, if the employer will match 50 cents on the dollar up to 6%, and you're only contributing 3%, you're leaving money on the table. So you want to contribute at least the minimum
to get the maximum match.
Correct. So that you can do that. And often when people enroll in a plan, when they are hired, they set a contribution level and they never change it again. And you may get merit raises or promotions or things of that nature where your income goes up over time, but you never increase that percentage. You might want to consider every time you get a raise to put part of that raise into an increased contribution into the plan.
Yeah.
So if you get a raise, let's say you're fortunate enough to get a 10% raise, that'd be a nice raise. You might want to say, okay, I'm going to take my investment into the retirement plan from 6% to 7%.
Yeah.
So you're still keeping most of that raise, but you're putting a little bit more into the savings plan. And it's a good thing to do. Another thing with your retirement account that people often never look at after they do their initial enrollment is how it's invested.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, when I've met with clients over the years and talked to them about their investment allocations and in their savings plan, I'll ask them, how did you come to pick these investments?
And they probably don't even have
most don't remember.
Yeah.
But actually what most people do, I believe, is they look at the investment choices. They look at what the returns for those investment choices were in the previous year, and they pick the one with the highest return from the previous year, assuming that would repeat.
That will continue.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always happen.
It rarely happens.
Okay.
So usually one asset class will perform well one year, and then it won't perform well the next, and some other asset class will. So statistically, if you picked the worst performing asset class from the previous year,
you might have a better shot
and went with that one, you would more likely than not outperform than if you picked the best performing asset class.
That's very counterintuitive.
It is. But people don't have, in reality, what you should have is a proper asset allocation that reflects your tolerance for risk. So, and this is an asset allocation between equities or stocks and fixed income or bonds for the most part. Some plans have target date funds.
Yeah.
And target date funds can be helpful, but they also can be a little confusing as well, because people will also just pick a target date based on when they think they're going to retire, but it may be still more conservative or more aggressive than they want to be. So you need to look inside that fund to see what it is. And then lastly, on a employer plan is to look at the beneficiary on there. So for instance, you got married, 4 years ago? 5 years?
2019.
Okay, 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. When you get married,
you have a life event you need to change.
You have a life event and you need to,
or you have the opportunity to change. I guess you don't need to.
So most people that get married probably don't think to go into their employer retirement plan and change the beneficiary. So the beneficiary might have been, before you get married, it might be your parents, or it might be a sibling or something of that nature. And then you get married and you you need to change it to your spouse, most likely.
Yeah.
Conversely, you get divorced. You want to probably take the spouse off and go back and change that beneficiary. Reviewing your beneficiary designation in your employer plans is a good thing to do on an annual basis, just to double check and make sure. Anyway, it's a good time to take a look and review your plan.
Yeah.
From that perspective.
So the next goal is to reduce debt.
And that's, most households have more debt than they would like. Studies show that this is probably one of the biggest areas of stress that people lose sleep over, and how to manage paying debt. Quite often it's credit cards, but it's also can be student loan debt. And then, of course, coupled with maybe car loans and then mortgage debt. And people don't know where to really turn on best how to manage that. So let's say you have a car loan and 2 credit cards, and you're concerned about that. How would you go about recommending to aggressively tackle reducing that debt?
Well, I would first determine how much I can afford to pay towards debt each month.
Okay.
So if it's $1,000, that's what I'm going to pay. I would look at my debts. I would list them by amount, smallest to greatest.
Okay.
And I would tackle the smallest one first. So I would pay if I had 2 or 3 debts, 2 credit cards and a car loan, I would pay the minimum on the 2 highest amounts. And then I'd apply the rest of that $1,000 that I could afford towards that smaller debt.
So you're going to get that smallest debt off the books as soon as possible.
Yes.
That's a great strategy.
And then once that one's off the books, I'm still paying $1,000 towards my debts every month, but I'm going to.
Then you tackle the next smallest. And you do that. So hopefully over the course of 2024, you might go from 3 pieces of debt that you have to 1.
Yeah.
And consolidate. And by then you're paying all $1,000 on that. So you're really whittling away on that.
Yeah.
That's called the debt snowball. It's not my idea. The first time I ever heard of that, it was through Dave Ramsey and his Financial Peace University.
Yeah.
Which I taught at my church a number of years ago.
But that's what we used in our own household when, Adrian was paying student loans and we were trying to reduce our debt before we got married, and we just aggressively worked towards some of those things. But
the key is to set a budget on how much can go towards debt reduction.
Yep.
And then when you do that, then you end up setting the priority and how it go. And it helps you to get a sense of accomplishment. When one of those comes off,
yes,
you feel like that's a sense of accomplishment. That's a win.
Yes.
So now you only have 2 left. So that's a good way to go. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the next potential resolution?
Set realistic savings goals for your short-term objectives and long-term objectives.
Okay.
So we've talked about the money date on here and how we think that that's such a great tool for couples to get on the same page financially in kind of a fun way.
So it's kind of looking at these, not looking at retirement which is very much a long-term goal, but looking at more interim goals. So it might be kind of a short-term interim goal might be, we have a car that has 100,000 miles on it. We know it has reaching towards the end of its useful life cycle. So we know in the next year or 2, we want to be in the market for a car. So it may be setting a savings goal to position yourself to be able to get a newer car, maybe not a new car, but a newer
new
car.
To you is always good.
Correct.
Too.
That's true. But to do, say, a vehicle replacement. It could also be, we know another interim type goal might be, we know our washer and dryer are going to have to be replaced in the next year or 2. So it could be something of that. Or
I've got a great example. We want to redo our bathroom.
Correct.
And And we're trying to kind of figure out, we're still waiting on a quote to come back from the contractor, but we kind of have a ballpark idea of how much it might be. And we're trying to work through that in our household. How will we finance this big goal that will really make us very happy?
Right.
Because it will make our bathroom a place that we want to spend more time in.
Right. Okay. And then another kind of interim type goal might be to either, for some people that aren't homeowners, to buy a house. To how do you position yourself to be able to buy a house, or how do you upgrade to a new house from a smaller house to a bigger house as your family expands. So those are the types of interim goals. And so having a resolution to have a plan to attack that is another good thing potentially to think about.
And you just have to be realistic about it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to save $1 million this year to put towards all of my things that I want to do, because that's just not realistic for most people.
No, it's not. Okay. Another idea is to review your life insurance.
Yeah.
Most people don't really ever sit back and look at it and say, do I have the right amount of life insurance? Do I have the right type of life insurance? Are the beneficiaries up to date?
Yeah.
Is my ex-wife or ex-husband still the beneficiary on my life insurance when it should?
You don't want that. Yeah.
It should be my children.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So.
And a lot of people, I think, at least people I know my age, might just have their life insurance through their employer.
Correct. You can still check the beneficiary.
Yes. But you have to determine, is that enough coverage? Now's a good time to review that.
Okay. So speaking of insurance, property and casualty insurance, it's a good time. That's another thing that you could do as you're looking at getting your financial life in order, is looking at your property casualty insurance. Most people, when they get car insurance or homeowners insurance or both, never look at it ever again. Yeah. And quite often you can shop your property and casualty insurance and make sure you're getting the best pricing, the best deal, and the best type of coverage. And a good property and casualty insurance agent can help you with that. I know both you and I in 2023 have redone our property and casualty insurance. And in my household, my annual expenditure, I got better coverage and more coverage than I had previously, more protection. And my annual cost went down about $1,500 a year.
We're in the same,
looking at that.
We're in the same boat. We got more coverage and we're paying less money.
Right. So you want to make sure that you are being properly covered. If you need umbrella coverage, that you're doing that. If you have certain things that fall outside the scope of normal coverage, like say, significant amounts of jewelry
or art,
that you have the proper riders on that. So that would be, something that you want to make sure of when you're shopping that.
Yeah.
So you need to also potentially look and see, do you have the right estate documents, or do you have estate documents at all? Have you done any estate planning? If you have children and you don't have estate planning documents,
you need to do it.
You need to do it.
Yeah.
You don't want the state to determine who's going to take care of your children in the event something tragic happens to you.
Yeah. So we actually just did our estate planning in 2023. And it is nice to know that if something were to happen to me and Adrian, that Laura will be taken care of in our wishes.
Correct. And that's important to me as well. And, but this is one that's one of my resolutions for the new year, because it's been about 15 years since Barbara and I did our estate planning documents. And it was when we did our documents the last time, we still had provisions to take care of you and Riggs in there. So that tells you how long ago it is. So we're going to sit down with Stuart here soon and to review and update our documents this year.
Yeah.
So that's one of my resolutions.
Yeah. Now, one thing when we were doing our estate planning, I was a little concerned about was we have one child with plans to have more children down the road. I didn't know if I was going to have to come in and redo our estate planning with every child that we have. And that's not the case.
No, because it's written where it will say all children of this marriage.
Yes. So that's kind of nice to know. Like, we really don't need to update our estate documents now for many more years, unless there's like some really major life changes that happen.
Right. So one last thing that I would like to suggest, if you're looking at doing resolutions regarding your financial wellness, is that I think from the standpoint of peace and happiness in your life, that financial wellness and physical wellness are connected.
Yeah.
I think it's awfully difficult to have peace and happiness if you're unhappy with yourself, if you're unhappy with the way you look, if you're unhappy with how much you weigh, if you're unhappy that you're not physically fit.
Well, and what you can do, like in terms of being a grandfather and keeping up with Laura, like, you are in great shape.
Well, I work at it.
And you work at it. But there's a lot of people who might wish that they could keep up with their grandchildren.
Correct. So I would suggest that you also not just focus only on financial wellness resolutions, but take a hard look at yourself and say, would I be better off being 20 pounds lighter, and set a goal that, maybe losing 3 or 4 pounds a quarter over the next year would be good for you. Or I'm not physically active. Maybe you and your spouse can go out for a 1-mile walk 4 nights a week and do that, just to do something, to be moving, you can do it with baby steps, but I think that they're not mutually exclusive of one another.
Yeah.
As far as being happy and satisfied in life. So if you need help, guidance with any of these items or thoughts or whatever, we're here to help.
We can help. Yeah.
So we would love to do that. And so eaterfinancialwellness.com is our website. And we want to help you focus on your financial wellness. So you can reach out to Alison
at Alison, ALISON, at eaterfw.com.
And I'm Jack at eaterfw.com. And your cell phone?
205-504-9868.
And mine is 205-613-4994. We'd like to help you on your financial journey.
We would.
All right, guys, that was great. Lots of things to keep in mind as you're making plans for the new year.
Well, thank you, Wendy.
All right. All right. Thank you for listening today. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends. Until next time, I'm Wendy McConnell.
Thank you for listening to the BamCam podcast with Jack Burnette and Alison Castellano from RFG Advisory. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at rfgadvisorywealth.com/Jack Burnette or give us a call at 205-510-9072. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Information here may be provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither our guest nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of our guest. They do not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, its employees, or its clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory LLC, RFG Advisory, or RFG, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place. RFG Advisory is an SEC registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of RFG by the Commission, nor does it indicate that RFG or any associated investment advisory representative has attained a particular level of skill or ability.